yo, what's up, everybody, and welcome to Interviews, the show where we take a deeper look on the inner workings of the people and places around our amazing community. Today I have a very special guest, the newly re-elected Governor's Council, Mr. DePalo. Welcome to the show. It's so good to have you, and congratulations.
Thank you so much. I'm psyched to be here as well. So
You're very welcome.
Thanks for having me, yeah.
It's great to have you. We had a great time last time.
So.
You know, we've had a little, this isn't our first rodeo together, so we're going to have just as much, if not more of a good time today. Yeah. Absolutely. So, DePalo, what have you been working on since being reelected?
Since re-election, the big news in my world on Governor's Council, just to remind anyone watching, there's 8 councilors. So I represent all of central Massachusetts, 60 towns in central Mass, from the northern border to the southern border, Quabbin Reservoir to 495. I live here in Worcester, obviously the biggest community that I'm honored to represent. So we get to vote on the judges that the governor nominates to put on the state bench. Also parole board members, also pardons that the governor puts forward, commutations of sentences, and a few other small roles. So the big news, of course, is not that I got reelected, it's that we have a new governor. We have an entirely new administration. They're putting together their legal team and their legal office that's going to be working with us, the Governor's Council, to hopefully put excellent people on the bench in Massachusetts. Yeah.
Do you feel encouraged with the election of Maura Healey and Kim Driscoll?
For me, who had some policy differences with the former administration, I couldn't be more excited to be able to be part of this transition. And I've had, I've had conversations with the governor and lieutenant governor. I'm really excited about their mindset. I think the way they're going to approach some of the issues in criminal justice that we're going to talk about, probably like pardons, commutations, juvenile justice. I think that they're much more in line with the way I see things. And so I'm very, very excited and optimistic about the next couple of years.
Well, that's really good to hear, especially from, our standpoint, to know that you're in a position with your position in a positive way, that
I'm feeling good. It's all good. Yeah. Everything's on the up and up. I'm excited. Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm so happy to hear that, because you do have a lot of very important things that you're going to be working on, and it's important to have that support coming down from
and that excitement is in contrast to like a lot of frustration and disappointment I had, especially over the last year, with stuff that the former administration was doing in the realm of the judiciary. So, but that's water under the bridge. So
absolutely. So what are your goals moving forward?
Looking forward. So my goals haven't actually changed all that much, right? So my number one goal is to diversify the juvenile court. As we discussed last time I was here, like my professional background, the way I got interested in this job, being able to approve judges, is the juvenile angle. I'm an attorney, but I used to teach in public schools. For a few years at the end of my teaching career, I was at alternative therapeutic high schools. So schools for kids who were dealing with social emotional disabilities. Particular school I was at, nearly the entire population was dealing with really serious and horrific trauma, whether it's abuse ongoing or in the past, bouncing around the foster system, and almost all of them court involved. And so I saw the difference that, one individual could make in the system for a kid who's being shuffled around, And by that, what I mean is, sorry, I was in the studio listening to Rep. Mary Keefe talks. You guys talked a little bit about this, but, what I know for sure is that it takes a tremendous amount of patience to break through with kids who have dealt with things kids shouldn't have to deal with because they put up these barriers. And they project a lot of, that's really defense mechanisms.
Yeah. And not just patience, but empathy and understanding, because you have to understand where they're coming from.
Well, empathy, understanding, patience. But, for me as an educator, right, it takes months and months to get that kid opening up to you, right, feeling like your respect is genuine, right, where they start to trust you and believe in you, that you are there to support them. It takes a long time. And as an attorney who's worked in juvenile court, I know that you don't have that time when you're an attorney and the kid's in juvenile court and they don't know who to trust. And the attorney, however well-intentioned and empathic and compassionate, right, and patient, however much that attorney has all those skills, it's almost impossible to get a kid to open up to you like that.
Yeah.
And so it's the attorney, it's the judges, it's everyone in that courtroom. Only the kid knows what's up, right? And so it's about, can you get that kid to open up? And just the simplest thing that I learned as a white man, teaching in a school with a lot of minority students, and it's black and brown boys who are disproportionately in our juvenile courts, seeing a face that looked like them, it made a difference, and they would tell me about it. Now, me working with them and being a trusted, patient, compassionate person who's in for their best interest, who's going to take interest in their interests, who's going to like follow up on stuff that's happening outside of school. That's great. I can make that connection over the course of time, right? But there's some level of comfort and trust that I saw kids, right? And they told me. So I'm not making it up. This is true. So in general in Massachusetts, this is a long way of saying, in general in Massachusetts, we need to diversify our judges.
100%.
We're way low. We're way low. The last administration did a good job of bumping up the parity between men and women, but we're still way behind as far as like black judges compared to percentage of the population. Same with Latino judges, and same with Asian judges for that matter. So all over we need that diversity, but for me, it's juvenile court where it's most important,
right,
to make sure it happens. And so last term, I went into the pool of applicants who had applied for judicial positions. I found extraordinarily qualified attorneys of color, and a couple of them I really encouraged to consider juvenile court. Took them around Worcester, some retired juvenile court judges, some practitioners, and so the last administration failed to move on those things, but I'm really, really hopeful that the next time there's an opening, we're going to see that take place.
Why do you think that is? You know, I mean, I guess we can't really speculate too much, but one thing I've had a real trouble seeing my entire life was a judge of any background other than white.
Right.
And it
That's
made you feel like we were in a white superiority
Well,
society.
you are in a criminal justice system that is right, that is rooted in white supremacy, sure.
Right.
So
and so that was tough, you know. I mean, luckily I had a great support system. I had a lot of people around me where I didn't find myself in the court system really at all until I was an older person, and we talked about why I ended up in the court system, which again, that was something that just luckily I had a good judge. We talked about this, but it was definitely something that I should never have been in to begin with.
Right.
Not that we're talking about me, but we are talking about the fact that in every time I've ever been in front of a judge, they've been usually a white male, an older white male as well.
Yeah, well, in Central Mass, that's definitely been the case.
Yeah.
We have Judge Guzman, who's up in the northeast corner of Central Mass. You could say she's been nominated to be a federal judge now, so soon she'll be leaving. So yeah, there's total lack of diversity in Central Mass in particular.
And actually,
and there's a lot of reasons for that. Yeah.
Andrea Campbell.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on her as she's the Attorney General?
She's an incoming attorney, recently sworn in Attorney General.
Do you think that'll make an impact on the overall criminal justice system, if not at least the juvenile justice system?
You know, Attorney General Campbell has personal family history. Her brother was in the justice system, and a lot of the stories that she tells and I tell kind of fall in the same narrative, unfortunately. And so I don't know the Attorney General very well at all, but I've met her a bunch of times on the campaign trail. And I think I'm just really excited about her. Her heart's in the right place, and she's informed by a lived experience that I think is going to do very well for our system.
Yeah, I think this past election really showed how hungry Massachusetts is for a change, particularly in the criminal justice system.
Yeah, we are. And it was a few years ago that we passed, that we met with the help of so many people around the Commonwealth, passed this really great criminal justice reform package. And one of the sad things of the last couple of years has been the way that the outgoing administration really failed to implement in full faith all of the things that criminal justice reform entailed. So that's why you hear, all this unfinished business we have to do. And it's like, didn't we already do that? Well, yeah, we passed the law, but we haven't actually, set up some of the systems inside of it that are going to help us actually get the results we want.
How long does that take? Because that's the other thing I've noticed is, there's a lot of talk on Beacon Hill. There's a lot of, we're going to have this bill passed, and then but then you don't see anything actually fruitful come of it, at least for years. And sometimes by then, a new administration comes in and reverses all the hard work that the previous administration put into place.
Yeah.
So how long do you think some of these changes that you're hoping to implement are going to take?
I wish I could say, I wish it had already happened. Again, the good news is, like as a simple example, data collection in our system is woefully inadequate. In some cases, there isn't data being collected. In some
do you think that's intentional?
In some cases, yes.
Yeah,
I do. No, in some cases, I know it's intentional.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't have that data being collected in the criminal justice reform law. There's supposed to be this this system set up so that all the agencies are feeding data into a single place, so that it's usable and so it's comparable, right? And so that's not happening yet. And knowledge is power, right? So it's when you're walking in the dark, how are you going to make the changes you need, right? I mean, the data is the light that guides you. So just a simple thing like that. It's like it is. I will say it's hard for me to wrap my head around. Like, why can't we do this? Why is there so much resistance within some of our agencies, and some of our offices?
You would think they're working with the best intentions on what's the overall good of the community, its people, and obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, but in my mind, I would say a community with lower incarceration rates and, higher productivity rates amongst the community members is a good thing, right? But it seems almost, at least in communities of color, especially major cities, Springfield, Worcester, Boston, and some of the smaller cities around those cities.
Sure.
Much higher incarceration rate and less I can't think of the word. Help me, John.
Let me jump in. Let me jump in. We have the
investment. Sorry, less investment on its people. Go ahead.
That's for sure true. We have the highest Latino incarceration rate in the United States.
Yeah.
Out of the 50 states, the highest. We have I believe it's the 14th highest Black incarceration rate in the country, out of the 50 states, right? And yet we have the lowest overall incarceration rate in the country, right? So, I don't want to get out.
Math ain't math.
I was going to say, I don't want to get out some charts here and stuff, but we're incarcerating the lowest percentage of our population, but of that population, we're incarcerating the highest percentage of Latinos
in the country,
and amongst the highest of Blacks. So
and let's be real about that fact there. We're up against like Texas, California, New Mexico, border states that deal with the heavy onset of
I don't want to delve into controversial waters, but sure, there's some states where I'm like, whoa.
Well, I'm just saying, how can we have a higher incarceration rate of Latinos than states like that? That blows my mind.
I think it's because of flawed policy.
Yeah.
Right? Because you said before, I don't think people want high incarceration population. I don't think that. But on the other hand, I know most people are living their lives. Most people aren't talking criminal justice on a podcast.
Right.
And most people, if we are going to be real, don't really think or care that much about incarcerated people if they don't have, I mean, that's the sad truth. Yeah. That's what I find. Yeah. And so, but you know what? They care a lot when they think their communities aren't safe, or they care a lot when their son, daughter, niece, nephew develops a substance abuse problem. Right. then they start to care.
Or when they're quick to say how much tax dollars we're spending.
Well, I wish we would talk about that more, because
Yeah.
I care about that. And in Massachusetts, we're up to $92,000 a year to keep someone in a cage.
Wow.
So, I think about my daughters who are 12 and 7, like one day if they choose to go to college and I'm hoping to be able to pay that bill for them,
could you imagine if
I
we
won't
just
have to spend $92,000 a year. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like,
that's
there's something's gone way off the rails here.
That's what, like 3 times college tuition? Could you imagine if we put $92,000 a year into a school? Just one, what it takes to take care for one prisoner, put that a year into a school. How much?
Well, I mean, you get a good trained teacher with the right perspective and background, and you're probably keeping 10 kids out of jail.
There you go.
Right. And so we know that. That's the thing. The problem is that's not magic. That's not made up. That's real. We have data to show the impact that diversion and support systems have to get kids on paths of opportunity and not incarceration.
Yeah.
But
doesn't make money.
There's always excuses, But the thing is, though, Manny, it does make money, because in the end of the day, we're going to spend less. At the end of the day, we're going to spend less. Not only are we going to spend less up front, so we spend less up front, we get wraparound services in our schools. Sorry to go off on a tangent here. We get wraparound services in our schools. Not only are we keeping kids out of jail and not spending $90,000 a year to lock them up, but they're out in the community doing whatever they're doing, making money, entrepreneurs, raising families, whatever they're doing, they're feeding back to us, right? They're out getting a job and they're paying taxes. And now their taxes are going back to the schools and not to the jails. So, I mean, it is a moneymaker.
Right.
Like, lifting people up is a moneymaker.
So the way things are set up right now, basically, where, as far as a criminal justice system, from what I can see, where lighting a match, dropping it on the floor, walking out the house and saying, gee, why is the house on fire?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, man, this kid has dealt with abuse. He's bounced around foster homes because we can't find a stable place for him.
Which is traumatic.
Which is traumatic.
Could potentially expose him to even more abuse. Potentially,
sometimes, sadly, right? He's been separated from his siblings over and over because we can't provide spaces that can house a whole family of siblings.
Right.
And you know what?
Which is terrible.
And, just side note, right? I read this article in the Globe yesterday. There's this tragedy going on in, I forget what town, Hingham, or there's some tragedy going on where it appears that a husband killed his wife and they had 3 young children. And there was an article about what's up with the children. Like, what are we going to do for these children? The mother's presumed dead. The father's under arrest for her murder. Where are these children going? And there was an article about our foster system and how it works. And can we get all of them together? Can we keep them together? And it's like, oh, whoa, we're talking about this now because it's a rich white family from wherever. Right. So this stuff happens all the time, all the time. And so you have the siblings broken up. They're bouncing around school districts. So forget about I missed 2 weeks of school. It's like I'm stepping into a new school with a new teacher, with new classes, with all, like they don't have my records from before. Like who knows did I get credit for where I was before? And then we go in and we're like, I know how to help you, children. And I'm using my white savior voice here. We're going to just make MCAS scores. We're going to raise the required MCAS scores for you to graduate. That'll motivate you.
Yeah.
That'll motivate you. So this is the kind of stuff we do. And I don't know. It's sad. And it's sadder and sadder the longer I live and look at it. Because we know what to do about it.
Yeah, and let's be real. This is a rabbit hole we could spend hours on.
I know, I'm sorry, yes.
And it can go off into so many different tunnels. It's not even funny. And I think that's why it's so important that you are in the role that you're in, because I think that where you are and the efforts that you're trying to achieve is going to make an impact and a difference and maybe seal up some of those offshooting tunnels from that rabbit hole we're talking about. We are going to be right back. This is Interviews.